Hey, you want to try a Lekker?
Excuse me?
Don't tell me you haven't been thinking about a certain wooden peripheral.
What are you saying?
Do you want to try the new wooden keyboard with the amazing Lekker Switches?
Okay, for a second there I thought you were saying something totally inappropriate.
After you feel what I'm feeling, this will become inappropriate.
Alright, give me it.
Give me. Good people, I'm giving Analog another chance because Wooting promised we would be impressed by the new and improved Lekker Switches in the final production run of the Wooting Two HE keyboard. You can see it ships bare so you can admire the teal stems and the beautifully smooth goodness underneath, as you get to choose between ABS keycaps or a PBT set for only $10 more. But all I'll say is the tech behind the Lekker Switches is awesome. It's just unfortunate to have such limited use behind it. Let me explain right after this. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. The new Lianli Unifan AL120 daisy chained to each other for simplified installation and handling, connected by a single cable exit for clean cable management, with beautiful blade interior and exterior ARGB illumination on both black and white models that are fully controllable through the software for RPM and all the cool looking effects. Check out the Unifan AL120 down below. So the Lekker Switches are the latest iteration behind the Analog design, in which a Hall effect sensor on the PCB can detect the magnet at the bottom of the stem and thus give us precise full range analog movement up and down. Now this analog movement versus regular key inputs isn't anything special, to be honest, since many games still don't support both a controller and mouse and keyboard at the same time, so you end up playing with one or the other. That is exactly what happens with the Ascent. When you move the mouse, the analog input gets disabled and vice versa. But if you are serious of teaching your fingers about the gentle movement up and down with analog keyboards, then the gamepad graph response is absolutely crucial. It is a seriously useful tool to make your life easier when it comes to analog movement with a keyboard, and I find the aggressive curve to be the most useful for me because as soon as you depress the key, there is something happening, there is a response, unlike all the other graphs that require more depression on the key switch, which I find to have less control that way. So the analog nature of the Lekker Switches is cool, but it's all the other tech that's baked into the Switch that I find so awesome. One of those things is adjustable actuation point. But wait a second, we've seen this on the original Wooting 1, we've seen this with SteelSeries OmniPoint switches and with Razer analog keyboards too. But Wooting has an edge. So the Hall effect nature of the Lekker Switch gives us a full range of actuation between 0.1mm all the way down to 4mm versus slightly smaller ranges on competing products. And of course you can set different actuation points per switch. If you rest your thumb on the spacebar and activate that accidentally, set that to a lower point. If you activate F accidentally on the way to G, set that to a different actuation point. If you want the WASD area to be as fast as possible, bring that up as well. Possibilities are endless, and that is the true benefit of having adjustable actuation point per switch on the keyboard. But hold on a good second again. Does this increased range actually make a difference? Wouldn't the really high actuation point of 0.1mm actuate the switch with like a light wiggle of the keycap? Well, not exactly, because the switch itself has a bit of resistance before needing to depress it, and it is the only analog keyboard where I have no accidental inputs through the weight of my fingers, which is awesome. So gaming with such fast switches is actually super nice, since the reset point is at the same time as the actuation, and therefore you do gain a speed advantage. The same kind of applies to the bottom range, 4mm versus 3.6 on competing products. So as you do bottom out, resistance does increase, therefore you need to apply a little bit more to fully depress the key, and if you love bottoming out, the 4mm is the only way to get there because 3.6 is still not exactly at that full bottoming out range, and therefore it does make a difference. But still, this increased in range in the actuation point is mostly for bragging rights, but I will say it is my favorite adjustable actuation experience yet. The second really cool feature of the Switch is what they call rapid trigger. And this means there's a dynamic actuation and reset throughout the entire range of movement, allowing you to reset the Switch without going all the way up. This means you can have multiple actuation inputs without needing to reset the Switch normally like you would by, let's say, lifting off your finger or letting the Switch come all the way up, and therefore you have a bit more finesse doing like side-to-side strafing, corner peeking. It really makes you feel one-to-one with the keyboard, and I feel like this is going to be the killer feature with the Lekker Switches because the reset point isn't locked at a particular range. Next up, we have DKS, or Dynamic Keystroke. Essentially, it's kind of like a macro, but letting you set up 4 different actions in a single keystroke, 2 on the way down and 2 on the way up. All right, so let's talk about this example with Escape from Tarkov. I found Dynamic Keystroke to be actually pretty useful here with a tactical device installed on my weapon. So right now, if I half press the T key, I can turn it on and off. You can see the laser turning on, but if I full press the T key, that activates Control plus T, and it allows me to cycle between different modes on that tactile device, which means I can activate just a flashlight, just a laser, or both of them together, so both flashlight and laser at the same time. Without me needing to hold Control and T, I can just either half press to turn it on and off, or fully press in to cycle between the different modes. The second example I can show you also with Escape from Tarkov is leaning. So the mechanic here is that you can lean just like regular in either direction, or if you hold Alt D, you can have a bit more like finesse in the lean in either direction. And this is actually very useful if you want to not fully expose yourself around the corner like that, but just want to lean out a little bit like this. So this is what I did with my E key, which is normally is the the leaning part. The first half is I reprogrammed it to be Alt D, and look what happens. If I lightly tap it, lightly without fully depressing it, I can have this sort of like very light lean, which is activated with Alt D instead. But now I can have it on a single key, which is super impressive. And if I fully depress it, I activate E by itself. But in reality, its application is probably going to be very limited because most games today, when it comes to controls, are simplified, and if you have to activate 4 things at the same time, then you already know you have a use case for DKS, and probably the Wooting 2 keyboard is going to be is already on your radar. As for the switches, they feel really nice and smooth. There's some pinging happening throughout the board if you like really hammer on them. The stabilizers are not bad, but they're not good either. Check it out. They're better than like gaming keyboards, but they don't have the thonk. And when I say thonk, this is what I mean. And so let's finish off with the overview of the actual keyboard. Now physically, it's nothing really special, just a black body, which is plastic with an aluminum top plate. Even though the keyboard is hot swappable, you can only put in other Lekker switches. You cannot put in flare text, and you cannot put the Lekker switches into any other keyboard but the Wooting 2 HE. To switch between digital and analog modes, there is a mode button that is available only in the ABS set. And for some reason not available in the PBT set. You can also enable this like overclock mode in the utility that lowers the response time, and in the future update will have even lower response time below 1 millisecond, which is so awesome because right now the key scanning is happening for all the keys, but in the future update you can set like a certain area that you are actually using that will allow the keyboard to lower the response time for those keys. The last 2 things are the removable USB-C cable with 3 channels for routing at the bottom. It's braided with this pattern, and the wrist rests are nothing special. They're rubber, and please, for whatever you do not smell these. And so this leaves us with the verdict. My thoughts on analog keyboards has not really changed over the last couple of years. I still feel like it's really difficult to train your fingers to press just the right amount to enable precise analog movement. Most games still don't support both mouse and keyboard and a controller/joystick at the same time, so you have to choose between one or the other. But the Lekker switches and all the features that the Lekker switch brings is going to be the killer feature for this Wooting 2 keyboard, and is my favorite analog switch to date. Both in how it feels, how it sounds, and it's not too light, not too heavy. I feel like the balance is just right. So Wooting definitely deserves some credit there, but I really hope to see more games support analog control with the mouse, so you can enjoy that beautiful fluid movement without sacrificing on like different weird pop-ups that pop up thinking you're using controller. So whenever any tutorial messages pop up, it says, you know, press A or B or X, that you're thinking you're using an Xbox controller instead of, you know, giving you those keyboard commands. Minor things like that would be fantastic if they were solved for a quality of life improvement. All right, guys, I'm Dmitry. Let me know what you think of the Wooting 2 keyboard down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Check out this other relevant content. Subscribe for more. I'll talk to you in the next video.